Was she always on her phone? Did your mother dislike her? Did she refuse to watch your favorite sport? Story 1. Keeping her ex around. He wants her still. She does not want him, but she likes the attention and commotion she gets from him. Walked away from that. Story 2. After being invited to her place after taking her out for dinner, I said, well, I'm going to give Name a call. I have been trying to get his attention all week. Clearly, I misread the date. Story 3. Cancel the first date with no rescheduling and then expected me to buy her a takeaway to be delivered to her place. Story 4. Make it very clear that I was in direct competition with other men she was seeing. Another woman started our date by making racist comments. Story 5. She was not interested in me. I do not want someone hard to get. I do not want to pursue someone running away. I want someone who wants me back. Story 6. When she did not listen to a word I said, started arguments with bad faith questions, lied to make things easier for herself, acted like a child, was judgmental and hypocritical, and finally used me to get what she wanted. Story 7. She told me it is normal for friends to cuddle, like cuddling up watching movies, which she does with her male friends and will continue doing because she does not think it is fair for someone to expect all their physical intimacy needs to come from their partner. She claimed this is completely normal, and me disagreeing was making her uncomfortable. I stopped responding. Story 8. My car broke down while we were driving, and she blamed me, repeatedly saying I ruined her day. She said I was lucky to get another chance with her after that. I will never forget the shocked look on her face when I ended the relationship as soon as I parked at her place. Story 9. She despised the things I was interested in, such as animated shows and professional wrestling. I did not expect her to share the same interests, but she kept criticizing the type of people who enjoy those activities, which put me off. Story 10. She cheated on me with her boss and tried to get my mother fired, who was her coworker. That did not work. Story 11. Needing to have passive-aggressive arguments every day for entertainment. This woman worshipped the Kardashians and Jersey Shore and did not want to have a normal, healthy relationship. It was exhausting and made me think I was a terrible person. Cannot believe how long I fell for that. Story 12. Absolutely zero accountability. Just flat out making things up when someone was called out. It was a complete mess, like dealing with an 8-year-old. I realized there was no way I could handle that for the next 30 years, so I ended the engagement. Story 13. New York City, for context, where owning a car is a nuisance. Otherwise, I would have picked her up and dropped her off myself. I planned all our dates closer to where she lived so getting home would be easier for her, and I just bit the travel bullet. I paid for everything on the dates. Fine. At the end of our third date, which went well, when it was time to part ways, I asked how she was getting home and she said, I am ordering a rideshare service unless you want to pay for it. Never has my interest in a woman plummeted so fast. And no, before you say I blew it, it was not an invitation back to her place. Story 14. When they do not listen even when you tell them something simple and clear, too much phone time is also a red flag. Them trying to take something that is not a big deal and turning it into a big deal is one too. Story 15. Threw up in a man's mouth while making out. I was not there, but I immediately lost interest in watching any more of the video. Story 16. I was assumed to be a gay man hitting on her son. I was in my mid-30s at the time with shoulder-length hair and a well-trimmed beard. I was at a local pizza restaurant and brewery to see my uncle's band play, and a young man was turning 21 that night. I happened to be sitting at the bar when he proudly placed his order. He noticed my United States Marine Corps ring and mentioned he had just been medically discharged. We had a brief conversation about that because I had also been medically retired at 25, so I could relate. He returned to his table after receiving his drinks, and I went back to my beer while watching my uncle perform. Not long after, his attractive woman in her 40s sat on the stool next to me, placing herself right beside me. Before I could say hello, she whispered into my ear, "My son is not gay," and then walked away. That quickly killed the mood. Story 17. A female friend of mine, whom I have known for a while, had car issues. She called me in a panic because I live nearby, asking for help as she needed her car. She is a single parent. I went to the shop, bought a battery, replaced it for her, and was home within 30 to 45 minutes. I told the woman I was seeing, and she became upset, saying that my friend should find a boyfriend soon because I should not be doing man stuff for her. Story 18. She threw a tantrum at me in public at the local bar. I laughed it off. She was intoxicated. I was not. I still see her around, but I do not call her anymore. No big loss. Story 19. I went over to help her with some do-it-yourself projects since she was freshly divorced and not very handy. She ended up trying to make a move on me and got offended when I rejected her. Her 3 daughters and my 1 daughter were all in the other room while this was happening. She had taken a shot and tried to get me to take one too. Story 20. She was a raging alcoholic. When we first started working together, she was able to keep it together, but over time it became obvious that she had a serious problem. We had been talking, but I ended up taking my time replying to her texts or ignoring them. It is a shame. She is exactly my type. She is the right age and everything. I just cannot take on those types of problems, so I did not. Story 21. Seemed more interested on the phone than when I was there. Totally turned a compliment around from positive to negative. Kept hinting and asking deliberately difficult questions about something she could easily have known by profession. It did not mean I did not feel bad. Story 22. Did a complete 180-degree turn on me. After she was constantly calling me, replying instantly, and kissing me when we were together, she suddenly turned cold and stopped replying. Story 23. We agreed to stop having sex due to circumstances. That was mid-August. From September through the rest of the year, she was really rude and stuck up, very narcissistic, and was always bothered by my presence. In the new year, she came to talk to me to apologize for being harsh and told me it was to get me to hate her and become unattracted to her. Well, I'm not attracted to you anymore. We agreed to be friends during the talk about stopping sex, but I did not want to be friends with her the following year. I moved a couple of months later and got a new job. I never spoke to her and deleted her phone number. Story 24. She gave brief, quick responses, as if she was not interested and did not bother to ask or try to engage me at all. Story 25. Keeping me as a backup and an emotional tampon. No, man. I have my own problems. I am not soaking up yours, especially when we are not even together. This was when I was a teenager and did not know any better. Took years before I realized how foolish I was. Story 26. Rude to service staff. I do not care how bad of a day you are having. Do not take it out on people who are barely making ends meet in a good month. Story 27. Her new drug use and inability to trust her completely were upsetting. By the end, I was truly disgusted. Story 28. Constantly made plans, then bailed at the last minute. I'm like, this was your idea. I didn't even want to be here. Eventually, I wouldn't even bother getting ready until she asked me where I was. Story 29. Subtly put the 3-month rule on me. A man with options is going to exercise them. The man who does not want you after 3 months is a better choice than someone who waited with no options. It has nothing to do with being the one or a deep emotional connection. At that initial stage of courting, neither party owes anyone anything. Story 30. I have absolutely no idea anymore. I was last single in 2012. However, my wife likes to play the game of finding things that irritate me so I will not get turned on, jokingly of course. But the joke is on her. I get to see her naked all the time, so I still win. Does that count? Story 31. Extremely selfish and childish, speaking as if she had not aged past the age of 16, even at 28. No thanks, I do not need that in my life. I am good. Story 32. Just had really boring ideas about manifesting and talking about what the universe would provide, but did very little work to actually pursue these goals. The more they didn't happen, the more she manifested. I decided she was probably deluded, boring, or lazy. Then I realized what she actually wanted was a man willing and able to provide the lifestyle she dreamed of. I told her we weren't compatible and moved on. Story 33. I had a strained friendship with a girl who had recently been on a reality television show. I took her to the Simple Plan concert, and her behavior was disgusting. She was still being recognized from her time on the show, and I could quickly see she was trying not to be seen with me. An article had come out the previous day suggesting she might be dating a woman, her roommate, but the public did not know that, and she spent most of the night looking up articles about herself. This was following an incident 2 weeks earlier when either she or a journalist had put an AirTag on my car while we were out together. I never told her about it because I was not sure, and I never found out if it was her or someone else. During the over 5-hour concert, she barely talked to me. At one point, she got upset when I tried to talk to her. She asked me to take photos of her but never returned the favor. Even before the main act came on, I wanted to excuse myself, maybe pretend to go to the bathroom, and not return to my seat. I planned to leave her there and find another empty seat on the opposite side of the stadium. When leaving the venue, I wanted to get some merchandise, but she just wanted to leave as soon as possible and barely spoke to me as I accompanied her to her car. When she left, she said, "Well, if I don't hear from you, I'll see you at event 6 months away." I was so stunned I didn't know what to say. After that, I intended never to contact her again, but she kept coming back and dragging me in. Unfortunately, I am too polite to tell someone to go away. Yes, and you are a terrible person. However, that was not the event that made me completely lose respect for her. Other friends knew I was maybe interested in her, and we had spent a lot of time together. What really lost her my respect happened the week before Christmas. We went out to dinner, and she spent most of the night bad-mouthing the guy she had been set up with on the show. The horrible things she said about him reminded me of the way she talked about many other people she called friends, but only in small doses. That evening, I realized I felt nothing for her anymore, and was able to honestly say that to a friend who knew us both. What finally made me cut her off was when, after trying to discuss what was going on between us because others had asked, "So what's going on with you and N?" she responded by saying, "I think I'm going to throw up, and I want to vomit 6 times. It did not get better. What kind of excuse for a human says that to someone they claim to be friends with? A brief friend or relationship where she picked up my phone when it rang and said, "Want me to tell her to go away?" When the girl tried to call me a month later was the funniest and most endearing thing I could have ever asked for. Story 34. She kept talking about her ex nonstop during our first date. I understand he was a big part of her life, but mentioning him 12 times in the first hour shows she is probably not over him. I quietly finished my coffee and never called back. Story 35. A woman took me out on a bingo date. I ended up winning $40 on one of my cards, and she insisted I split it with her because she paid for the date. Goodbye. Story 36. Started flirting with my admittedly handsome friend in front of me and apparently behind me. They are all gone now. Story 37. She kept asking me if I thought other women were more attractive than her. Every time we went out, she would point to random women and ask, "Is she more attractive than me?" The insecurity was exhausting, and I eventually realized it was not going to get better. Story 38. A lady I was with became jealous of her cat while we were in bed cuddling. She threw the cat on the floor so I would pay attention to her. Story 39. She was 23 years old and had given up on passing her state board examinations after failing once. She took a job at an ice cream shop, wasting her education. She decided to stay with her parents until I finished school and could take her away from the situation. She would not drive the 90 miles from her parents' house to my college to visit me because her parents did not trust her, so I could only visit using my work-study income to pay for gas. I got injured at work and struggled with daily activities, yet she still did not come to check on me because of her parents. I finally realized that if she could not stand up to her parents at 23, it was unlikely to get better if we married. Story 40. Interested as in romantically? I was 37. She was 34. Been together 7 years, 2 months from wedding day, and I caught her cheating with an 18-year-old boy she worked with. In our bed. They not only got away with it that day, but are still together 22 years later. True love, I guess. Story 41. I like to get to know someone a bit before asking them out. Apparently, I was too slow. She went on a date with a friend of mine. He was not interested, She was confused about why I stopped pursuing her after that. I am not interested in being your second choice, and I am not interested in dating someone who a friend has rejected. Story 42. Refused to take accountability for her negative behavior by saying, I would appreciate it if you do not take it personally, and answering the smart asshole to the question, who would you want to be with? A highly intelligent asshole or a nice guy with average intelligence? Story 43. Started ranting about anti-vaccination conspiracy nonsense. The worst part is that she has a postgraduate degree in biological science. She should know better. Story 44. Was by far the neediest, most insecure, and anxious person I have ever met, to the point of neurosis. Could not go 2 sentences without complaining about how she was emotionally neglected as a child and how it had affected her ability to form meaningful relationships. She claimed to have been receiving therapy and counseling for the past 15 years, but still seemed to have the emotional awareness of a brick. Her anxiety also made her severely narcissistic and mostly unable to empathize, despite her claims otherwise. The most surprising part is that she works as a therapist. I fear for her clients. Story 45. While staying at my house, she said she had a migraine but was too chipper and active to be suffering. Story 46. Being downright mean to pets and claiming she is just rough playing. Examples include yanking on her dog's ears hard enough to get a physical reaction from him, petting them so hard that they start flinching and walking away before she begins again, and grabbing their tails to pull them back for what she calls love, which consisted of picking on them. She blows in their eyes hard, antagonizing them into wanting to bite her, and then scolds them for it. Don't even get me started on the horses and cats. That woman is still in my life as a distant friend. I refuse to talk to her about animal care and avoid being around her if animals are involved. Story 47. She asked me if she wanted to hang out when she comes back to town. I asked a day or 2 prior if she wanted to go to a fair, and she agreed. After I asked her what time was good, I received complete radio silence until the day after the fair. It turned out she drank from 7 p.m. to noon the next day and then slept the entire day after. She did not even apologize. She just played it off like she was being silly. Story 48. I have definitely cut a woman off because of her excessive phone use or disinterest in my hobbies. Recently, within the last year, I cut a girl off because of her drinking habits. She drank in a pool full of liquor, and I did not feel she was worth the hassle. Every woman has her issues, but I would rather be with one who is actively working on herself and willing to be there for me too. Story 49. She acted as if her phone number were nuclear launch codes and refused to give it to me. She insisted on talking through a dating application. Story 50. Went to Disneyland with her former partner while we were dating. It ended that day. I was not comfortable with that. Story 51. We were barely flirting online, getting to know each other when I was explaining to her that something was disappointing about my weekend, in which I was unable to do everything I wanted to do with my daughter. Her reply started with, "If you had been a good father, you would have." Story 52. Started a relationship with another man behind my back and never talked to me about her needs in the relationship. Story 53. She got a nipple piercing, and I feel like piercings ruin whatever body part they are on. I have been desensitized to ear piercings, so those do not bother me. We are still friends. I am just not interested in playing with her breasts anymore. Story 54. Was too bougie. I told her about my travels and adventures, and she was basically like, could not be me. Story 55. She stopped communicating with me. We were friends for 10 years, and I had a crush on her the entire time, before finally going on a couple of dates. Rather than telling me she was not interested, she simply did not respond. Strangely, she posted on my social media once or twice shortly afterward, which only made things more confusing. Story 56. She was in the psychiatric ward every week. She could never hang out without having a breakdown explosion that she would blame on her borderline personality disorder. I would regularly have to talk her out of taking a bottle of benzodiazepines. She never had anything positive to say unless she was feeling sexually aroused. Story 57. On a vacant lot near her house, the State House Authority built a nice modern 3 to 4 bedroom house. As we drove past, she said, There goes the land values. It will be full of people of color soon. Her two youngest children were in the car. As we were driving through her neighborhood, I showed her the filthy, untidy homes owned by her fellow white residents. Since I worked for the city, I knew the area and the problem residents. I dropped her and the children off and said, "That's it for me, we can go no further." Story 58. We reconnected after about a year, and she started talking to me as if she had been watching a steady stream of nonsense. She spoke as if trying to challenge me to meet her standards. I told her it is better that we do not see each other. I am not interested in being objectified any more than she is. Story 59. Knew her for a while. She told me she was interested. I formed a friendship with her son, and when I finally said we should start a life together, I was recently divorced and rather shy. She told me that a friend needed help getting a television in her house and she needed to leave. I had seen television before and knew about that excuse. It ended up being for the best. I literally met my wife about 2 or 3 weeks later. Story 60. Constant liar, not about small things, but outrageous claims. The best example. She said she was a professional wrestler, that's how we connected, through wrestling, but was morbidly obese and could not perform physically. She still believed all her stories were real and claimed that we, as part of the wrestling scene, all hated each other backstage. The only time she ever ran was for the ice cream van. She said she'd been wrestling for years, but always refused to show or prove it. She had a whole gimmick, entrance, outfit, and everything made up. Obviously, none of it existed. She is still telling this story 6 years later. Story 61. I forgot what we were talking about a day later. I had to go through the conversation to understand what I was asking. Story 62. Gay man here. I was planning a date and intimacy with a man. I really liked him and he really liked me. We had been building chemistry for weeks leading up to this. That morning, he told me he drank too much the night before and did not think he could go out. He was going to spend the afternoon at home doing quiet activities. That was somewhat understandable, but what really upset me was that he put in zero effort to make it up. When I suggested alternatives or other dates, he already had plans for the entire week and refused to change any to see me. If I wanted to see him, I had to change my plans, including going to his home on his only free day because he was too busy to come to mine. I did. Afterwards, I decided I did not want to keep trying if I had to put in all the effort. I want to be with someone who also wants to be with me, not just someone whose only effort is letting me do the work. I pulled back and we remain good friends, but I have not tried pursuing anything further with him, and he has not either. Story 63. I probably have better examples if I think on it a bit, but the first things that come to mind are 1. Having a really sloppy handshake. A girl back in school about 11th or 12th grade by US ages. We met for the first time, and as soon as I felt her handshake, all attraction disappeared instantly. Voting far right. I developed a huge crush on a girl a year or 2 after that first example. Nothing ever happened because I was extremely shy and never tried anything. But we got to know each other and became friends for a few years. Fast forward about a decade after I last saw her. Even though I didn't have those feelings anymore, I remembered the crush fondly. One election, the prominent far-right party of my country got voted into parliament for the first time. Soon after, she came out as a proud voter on social media. That destroyed any lingering feelings I still might have had for her. I also remember another example. A woman who was a coworker and a good friend became my boss, and she was one of the worst bosses I've ever had. She even drove me to exhaustion disorder and an extended sick leave. But that is a longer story for another time. Story 64. I understand. These are our own unique deal breakers, and feelings cannot be restored once they are turned off and viewed from a different perspective. Story 65. She had an Adam's apple, and after an awkward dinner with my parents, my mom informed me that she was a he. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.